Good evening. Today, it's been claimed that the British state has been secretly sneaking ISIS brides back into Britain for years. 6 women linked to Islamic State, held alongside Shamima Begum, have been quietly brought back to the UK. That is according to the director of a camp that holds these jihadi brides. Now, before any bleeding-heart liberals pipe up and say, oh, these poor women are victims, can I just remind you of the fact that Shamima Begum knew exactly what ISIS were doing when she travelled over there to join a genocidal Islamic death cult. Here she is, speaking to the media back in 2019.
Did you know what Islamic State were doing when you left for Syria? Because they had beheaded people, there were executions.
Yeah, I knew about those things and I was okay with it.
Bingo. There you go. Women can be just as radical or even more radical than men. A report by the Henry Jackson Society in 2019 found Muslim girls were more active when it came to seeking out extremist material online. And let me introduce this monster. This is Sally Ann Jones, OK, known as the White Widow. She was born in Greenwich, married a jihadi, wanted to recruit an army of Islamist women. She was behind a plot to assassinate the late Queen and Prince Philip. She used social media to tell people how to make homemade bombs. In 2016, she issued specific calls for Muslim women to launch terrorist attacks in London, Glasgow and Cardiff during the month of Ramadan. It is dangerously naive to say that women cannot be as bad as the men when it comes to jihad. And we've reportedly let some of these ISIS brides back into Britain. Shocking. We've apparently allowed hundreds of actual ISIS fighters to come back to Britain as well. In fact, more than 400 of them. Here's Sadiq Khan being grilled about it shortly after the London Bridge terror attack.
How many of those 400 have come back to London?
The estimate is just over half. It's one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense for the government to be cutting resources from those...
Where are they? You're the mayor of this capital city. Where are they?
I can't follow 400 people. What I can do is make sure with the policies, because what we can do, though, is make sure we've got the resources for the police and the experts to follow.
Or you just couldn't let the jihadis in. You know, that is an option, isn't it? I mean, the fact that previous governments appear to have been sneaking ISIS brides back into Britain could be used by Shamima Begum's lawyers. Begum is taking her case to the ECHR. They're going to take one look at this and, mark my words, she'll be back in Britain before you can say Allahu Akbar. This is just like the Afghan resettlement scheme all over again. Around 40,000 Afghans were secretly brought to Britain at a cost of billions of pounds after successive governments tried to cover up the fact that there'd been a data breach that supposedly left them at the mercy of the Taliban. But they bungled it. They imported criminals and people who've been referred to the terrorism watch list. The Telegraph reported that, shock horror, some of these blokes might actually be linked to the Taliban. Who could have seen that coming? What are our leaders doing to us? And I need to remind you that you weren't allowed to know about the ISIS brides or the Afghans. I think they never wanted you to find out the truth. I think they are willing to put you and your family at risk to hide it from you. You have every right to be very angry about that. Let's get thoughts on my panel. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. I've also got journalist Benjamin Butterworth and Reform UK member Sir Jake Berry. Carol, I'm sorry, I think anyone who thinks that these women are just, you know, victims, poor young ladies who fell in with the wrong crowd are shockingly naive.
These girls saw, as we all did in this country, videos of ISIS beheading people, burning people alive. They knew the stories about women and children being raped and buried alive, and still they went to join this death cult. But I think this is insanity, what's happening here. You know, we know there's a whole generation of children being educated by ISIS fighters in these camps, in the Al-Hol camp and the Roche camp, where Shamima Begum is. There are 30,000 ISIS family members in those camps. We know that boys in those camps are being made to have sex with women, to produce children for the caliphate. They even have ISIS courts in these camps where people who don't do what they're told can be killed, can be executed by these ISIS fighters. So to pretend that these jihadi women are actually haven't been changed by their experiences there is nonsense. We know that jihadi women were not only recruited to breed children. They were recruited to spread propaganda, to recruit people, and in some cases to even fight. They were trained in sniper shooting. We know that Shamima Begum, when she was over there, we know that she swept up the severed heads of people. We know that she was a member of the morality police there, where she patrolled the streets with a Kalashnikov across her shoulder. You know, she has never shown, her and none of the other ones have shown a jot of remorse.
Well, and any remorse that she did show, which by the way wasn't really any at all, about the Manchester Arena bombings, had to be absolutely forced out of her by an interview.
And don't forget, Sajid Javid, when he took her citizenship away 5 years ago, he was asked why, and he said, if you knew what I knew, you'd have done exactly the same as me.
Exactly.
He'd seen a CIA report, which he said shocked him to his core, about her.
This is another scandal, another massive scandal. That we have been sneaking under the radar female jihadis back into Britain for years. I mean, it's remarkable.
I mean, it is. I mean, the first thing is these people are traitors. And, you know, they made a choice. They went and, you know, fought for a flag of another country against, in many cases, against British soldiers across the region. Leave them there. Don't let them back in. They made their choice. Actions has consequences. I know people will say, look, they've got children. That's also a choice. Leave them there. Do not allow them back in the UK.
Absolutely.
And actually, the fact that the British state, in secret, is taking a different view, I think is absolutely terrible. But it is, we don't live in a country with a sort of benign state that actually thinks like we do and says, people make a choice, let traitors stay out of the country, don't let them back in. We live in a state that is run by human rights lawyers. In fact, our Prime Minister's a human rights lawyer. Is run by human rights lawyers who actually think, you know, elevating the causes of people who hate Britain or don't care about Britain above that of the British public is the correct way for a state to behave.
Yeah.
It's not. Leave them in Syria. Do not let them back in the
And there's precedent. But arguably two of the worst jihadis this country's ever produced have actually been women. They're both actually called the White Widow, so we possibly could have come up with a better name for the second one of them. But both called the White Widow. I mean, one of them is still alive, by the way, we think, anyway. She's somewhere, we don't know. I mean, there's an entire Netflix documentary about whether or not she was responsible for ISIS attacks or al-Shabaab attacks in Kenya, all of this stuff. There is a precedent here. I mean, I'm sorry, but we have let jihadis back in.
Well, you know, the state has been allowing some of them back for many, many years.
Secretly.
It has, because there was a case in 2016 of a woman called Tarina Shakil, who was then tried when she got back here and put in prison for 6 years for running off to join ISIS. That was a decade ago. And so there is a long-standing precedent of this. The question isn't about whether the actions of these people are acceptable. Clearly, they're deplorable. But if you are a UK citizen, then citizenship is not a gift to be given and taken based on good behaviour.
If your name's Al Fatah.
When you leave your country
gave him citizenship
to join a death cult, to destroy the West, you forfeit your right to citizenship.
Correct.
But, I mean, we have, you know, we didn't deport Fred West or Dennis Nielsen, right? There are abhorrent people that we accept.
Well, they weren't abroad killing people. They were killing people here and they got put in prison. It's a stupid argument.
You punish the worst of your society. And I think, you know, we should be faithful to our principles, which are that you put people on trial, you put them in prison if they're a danger. But if you were to say that you automatically lose your one citizenship, well, then you would have a problem that people who commit crimes in this country but are from another, then they would leave all of their people here. And so where does that end up?
You sound like an apologist for these women. For these women who have lived with men who have killed people and who may even have killed people themselves. Yeah. It's an outrageous argument to say they should be allowed back in here with their children who will have been indoctrinated in these camps. The camp that Begum is in is famous for indoctrination, as is Al Hol camp.
So look, you have one, as you say, you have one citizenship. You're British, right? But if you make a choice to turn your back on your state, go abroad, pay homage to another flag, murder people in the name of that flag, let them rot in Syria. Do not let them back into the country.
But it's the lies, and this was happening under the Conservatives. Again, the British public, we were not allowed to know about this. We were never supposed to find out about this. They never wanted someone like me to ever sit on national television and tell my audience
this is a political decision.
Has been letting jihadis back into Britain.
Level decision. That is the country we live in. You know, we have
the security
activist civil servants.
The security services have told this government time and time again that these women are a danger. And as you say, in some cases, more dangerous than some of the men. And so why would you have a security service if you just ignore them?
And why would they feel the need to cover this up?
Well, I mean, some of it... Well, we've known it's happening, even if the individual identities were not made public. And
we haven't known it's happening. You say that like people in Britain know. People in Britain did not know. And you watch tomorrow, the papers will be full of this. People are incandescent about Begum and the likes of her.
But part of that is that if you reveal their identities, it could create further danger and much greater cost for the state. The other point is that, you know, Carol mentions the children of these people. Well, why do those children deserve to be allowed to be radicalised or to be led down a life of hell?
When they face,
because it's too late for them.
When young kids have no responsibility for it, I think that's a moral
failing. If they have been radicalised, it is too late.
Why not just let children in?
It is too
late.
Why
not let every child come to the UK then?
But
look, these parents made a choice. They made a choice that they should be made to live.
Well, that's on the mothers, that is. That's not on us. That's on the mothers. And their kids have been radicalised in those camps.
I don't think we're safer as a world by allowing these people's children to be radicalised.
I'm not interested in a safe world.
Safer. And the final point is...
I want a safe Britain.
Given we know this has happened for years, I would like
to keep saying it's happened for years. Do you have figures about how many have come in over the years?
Well, because it's a handful. Read about it in years ago.
It's a handful.
Did Home Secretary Suella Braverman ever let any of these people in?
No, exactly.
She was in charge for a while.
Exactly.
I think, given her new prominence,
she
should answer that question.
Exactly. These are questions to ask. Now, Jay, the other aspect to this is that Shamima Begum is due in the ECHR. Well, not personally, obviously, but someone who's representing it. CAB rank rule. There's so much about that, don't we? Going to be representing her in the ECHR, right? And the ECHR is going to take one look at this. They're already going to take a dim view of the fact that we've made her stateless. They're already going to take a dim view of the fact that we don't want her to come back. And now they're going to say, oh, well, guess what? There's a precedent here, isn't there? Some of these women are no worse than she is, and you let them come back. They've literally made Shamima Begum's legal case for her.
Yeah, and, you know, this is why we should leave the ECHR. I mean, to me, I've been campaigning this for years. Britain should make its own laws. British politicians should decide what those laws are. If a British politician, Sajid Javid in this case, has decided Shamima Begum, the traitor, should not be allowed back into Britain, why should a foreign judge tell us otherwise?
Let's make a point that the Supreme Court in 2024 said there are no circumstances under which she would be allowed to come back. Well, so I don't believe...
But the ECHR trumps that.
I don't think... No, they don't trump it. We have to decide in this country whether we allow the ECHR to come back.
The current legal position is that the ECHR
Supreme Court has said under no circumstances should be allowed to come back, that her reasons and the evidence she presented to come back was not enough.
But just think about that, seriously. So it was only about a year or so ago...
It's 2024.
That you found out, we all found out, that we'd actually imported something like, what was it, 40,000 Afghans? Something like that? Right. Built homes for them, specifically for them. Some of them have gone on to commit horrendous crimes. Some of them are just believed to be just card-carrying members of the Taliban, right? And you were told that you weren't supposed to know about that. You just weren't supposed to know about it. Now it's turned out ISIS brides as well. Oh, sorry, you weren't supposed to know about that either. What next? What is this country?
So if you, like, sat in a pub... trying to make this stuff up. Going, I wonder what the government's doing that we don't know about. You actually couldn't make up worse stuff than this.
Absolutely.
The thing about these women and kids coming back, this state will have to pay for them for the rest of their lives. MI5 will have to guard them and monitor them for the rest of their lives. How much is that going to cost us?
Wow.
It's outrageous.
Well, according to Benjamin, makes a safer
outrageous.
world.
Well, OK.
Let's have a safer Britain.
Let's just have a safer world.